beat.
Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of
Yo.
the Midcard. I am with Joey Wrestling. Joey, what's up?
Not much, man. Yourself?
Not much at all. We didn't really get much on Friday Night SmackDown, did we?
No, it was kind of a boring show. Not a lot happened. Big botch. I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, nothing crazy.
It wasn't like we were texting a little while ago. I feel like maybe they didn't want to overshadow the draft.
Yeah, it's almost like they were trying to make the show like focal around the draft.
Right.
You know, and they even showed like the draft war rooms, which was different. You know, it was a little cheesy, I guess, trying to play off the draft a little too much, in my opinion. But the NFL draft, but I mean, it wasn't bad. wasn't great. It wasn't bad.
No, it wasn't. I mean, it kind of was what it was. We didn't get many surprises. It wasn't like anything crazy.
Right. Except for the Kiana James pick, which was a little out of left field.
Right.
But
So
otherwise,
let's just jump into it. Their first rounds was Bianca Belair was the first overall pick to SmackDown. Not great.
I feel like they were trying to make a statement with this. Yeah, like as much as I like Bianca Belair, I don't necessarily see her as like a first overall pick necessarily.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like more than anything, I mean, she's a star, but you know, they don't focus a lot on the women's division, in my opinion, to make her the number one overall pick. But if that's, I mean, if this is a precursor to them focusing a little bit more on it, then I'm here for that. But it was a very interesting. The first two overall picks I thought were wild to me.
Why you didn't like Jey Uso?
I just don't see him as that high level of a star. I think it's crazy. I think he's you know, he's not. I get that he's got a world heavyweight championship shot, but he's never been billed as necessarily a top guy. And I guess this maybe is how they're trying to kind of push him into that top spot. But yeah, that's why. I mean, him going over Seth Rollins or Randy Orton or Kevin Owens, like, what are we doing?
I just got a text message from one of my friends who's also a listener, and he said, "Don't disrespect Bianca Belair." Like,
I mean,
hey TJ, she's fine, but she's not a number one pick.
I'm a big Bianca Belair fan. I just think that's, you know, the women's division hasn't been really propped and pushed in that way.
Right.
I mean, it's just weird to me, man. It was just weird for her to go number one overall. And I guess if that's what they're trying to do is promote or push the women's division harder, that's fine. But it was weird when I saw that. I was like, all right, that's definitely a direction.
It just doesn't make sense. And then to follow it up with Jey Uso instead of another female.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you're going to go female first overall, then you got to go female second overall.
Why wouldn't Becky go next?
You can act like, right.
Or actually,
like, oh, no,
hold on, reverse. Really. She's champion now. I forgot that we went that way.
I hate that rule, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. I just forgot she was a champion. But it's still, though, it is weird. Is there no one else that's on her level? You know, like they couldn't. Right. There was, you know, like can't.
Jade Cargill should have been second.
But the thing is, she's in a trio with Naomi and Bianca.
Right, but they didn't draft all three.
I know, but I don't think they're going to split it up, though. I think it's too early for them to split that up.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to draft all three in other areas like tag teams and all that stuff, then you have to draft those three.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what you expect. You know what I mean? Unless you're going to split them up in the rounds maybe tomorrow. But I mean, come on, really?
The whole thing, the whole first round was just really weird to me.
Yeah, because Jey Uso going second. I mean, yeah, main event Jey, we get it. You're trying to push it, but I'm not buying it.
There's so many other picks that should have gone. Like, I still think it's wild that he went before Randy Orton. Absolutely wild.
Carmelo Hayes went third to SmackDown.
This was great. I think, if we're being honest, he should have gone and I get See, and this is where I go nuts, because if Carmelo's going to stay on SmackDown and SmackDown took Bianca, Carmelo should have gone first. He should have been number 1 overall, because you need to push him as a top star now that he's making the transition. Bianca's already there. I do love that he went as high as he did. But I know, they because I think I'm trying to remember back to I think it was 2016. It's right above my head, right before the SummerSlam where Finn Balor won the Universal Championship. I don't remember where he went, but I know he was the first NXT star taken off the board. He went to Raw. I should have looked it up beforehand. I didn't think about it though. I don't think he was number 1 overall, but I know he went as a high pick. So I'm hoping that means a lot.
He wasn't
for
number 1
Carmelo.
overall though. Yeah.
He was high though. Like, he was one of the top, I think top 3 rounds. But typically, if you're the first NXT guy off the board, it means that they're going to push you to the moon. And I'm hoping they do the same with Carmelo Hayes, because he is phenomenal. AJ's phenomenal, but he is a fantastic wrestler.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, but I do see the appeal, and I think he is good in the ring to watch. But
great on the mic too.
I was just looking up the 2016 draft just to see where he went.
I just know he was the first NXT guy off the board, because that was when I started getting back into it, and I wanted to see it, and that kind of fell into the whole thing of me getting back into it, because I was like, well, I really like this Finn Balor guy. I like the Demon persona.
So we had Seth Rollins go number 1. I remember that. Dean Ambrose went to SmackDown number 1. Then you had Charlotte Flair, and then AJ Styles, which was huge at the time. And then Finn Balor to Raw.
Okay. So yeah, he was top.
Finn Balor went before Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear.
That's where then that I'll get off a little off topic, but it drives me nuts that Finn Balor at one point was considered that highly in this organization, that he was pushed to the moon, was given the very first Universal Championship that they were trying to make this big, coveted, crazy title. And ever since he came back from that shoulder injury, he's floundered for the most part. He's had a couple mid-card titles. He was in one high-profile feud.
To be fair, he got hurt again. You know what I mean? Like, he came back, had the IC title, and got hurt.
Yeah, but he wasn't out that long, though.
And even matter. Still, if you keep getting hurt, they can't.
I don't know, man. I mean,
it's how they operate, dude. The WWE is 365. It is what it is. They travel all the time. They're always at house shows, always at this and that.
How's Seth Rollins doing?
Yeah, right.
How's Charlotte Flair doing?
Eventually, they're gonna stop. Yeah, but he got hurt the first night he was champ. You know
but that's not his. Yeah, but that's not his.
I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying, for the WWE, they look at it as, we gave you a chance and we didn't even get to see what you got.
I don't know. I'm not going to buy that, because it's if
Come
it
on,
was
man, that's what they do.
If it was something, it was a power bomb from Seth Rollins into the barricade, and he's injured people like that before.
If it was somebody that was more established, then you can make the, then you can be like, well, why, this guy, that guy. But Seth gets hurt, he's already established himself as the number 1 guy. Finn was on his way and they were pushing him, but he wasn't there yet.
Yeah, but I still don't buy the injury history is the reason why they didn't push him again.
I think it is. I honestly do. I there's no other reason why, but he gets hurt a lot. And while he might not miss a ton of time, like when he is out, he's still out. They don't like that. You know that. They don't like the injury guys, which sucks, because Finn Balor, I think, is one of the most talented guys on their roster. Despite his size, he should be a draw. Like, he is a draw when he's pushed. It's just, I don't know. That would be the only reason I think they would do that, though. But, yeah, so Carmelo Hayes and then Seth Rollins 4th overall.
I mean, I don't mind. It's a great pick, but I mean, if he's in, I'm still confused with the injury thing now. Like, how, if people are injured, are they picking them? Are they not picking him? Like, it's really, I'm.
What I didn't like was Roman Reigns taking himself out.
Yeah, that was weird too. I don't understand why he did that.
I don't know. Paul Heyman came out, and I do like the promo that he cut, because it wasn't just about Roman being out. It was the real tribal chief. So he's taking a shot at what's his name? Sikoa? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Solo. Yeah,
Solo Sikoa. He took a shot at him, but again, how long's Roman out? why can't he be drafted? Why can't I don't understand. You
Yeah.
can just decide that you don't want to be drafted.
I think it's one to assert his place in WWE that he can still dictate what he wants to do. Can you fill air for 1 second? Do you mind giving me a second so I can step away? All right, thank you.
No, that's fine. Dude, I don't understand how they can just decide what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. I don't like that wrestlers can just dictate that they can or can't be drafted. I absolutely hate that. I feel like if you're on the WWE roster, you should be available to be drafted. You should be able to be traded. If this is going to be believable and you're going to try to make it like an NFL draft thing, then it needs to be believable, and you need to make it that while you can refuse to go to another team, like, say he gets drafted by Raw and then he demands a trade to SmackDown. I kind of like that idea as opposed to just saying you're not going in the draft completely. But I have a problem just saying that you can just dictate that you're in or not in. I don't like that. I don't know if you heard that, Joey, but I said what I would have rather seen is that Roman gets drafted to Raw and just refuses to go and gets traded back to SmackDown.
I don't know if you guys heard me yelling at my dog, but he was driving
me
nuts.
That's why I muted him. Like,
yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, anyway, and I love my dog, so I don't take that the wrong way.
No, I get
he hates people. And so someone was picking something up outside, and he loses his mind if someone walks by. It's ridiculous. But getting back on track.
But yeah, like I was saying, I feel like Roman should have just refused to go to Raw and got traded back to SmackDown as opposed to just pulling yourself out of the draft. I feel like it would have been a better storyline wise if he just refused to wrestle on Raw.
So it's two things. I think one, it's to show that he still dictates what happens to him on the in
I get that, but you can get that by demanding a trade back.
But I also think it's when he comes back, it's more or less just setting it up so when he comes back, he can go between brands. He can do whatever he wants to do. They don't want to paint themselves in a corner of...
No, but he said he was just going to SmackDown. That's what he said. That's what Paul said.
Oh,
Paul said he built SmackDown and he's a SmackDown superstar.
Okay.
That was my problem. I don't think you should be able to dictate if you're going to do a draft, then everybody's involved in the draft. Back in the day, we got, Undertaker to SmackDown. We got the surprise of Triple H going to SmackDown. We got all these big names that didn't want to go anywhere that ended up getting drafted, and it is what it is. Maybe you have an Eli Manning holdout situation or something along those lines. I think that would have played out better than just saying I'm not being in the draft.
Yeah, you got a point. Yeah, you got a point. It is weird. I guess
it's not a big deal, but like it's still just strange to me.
I'm gonna guess what happened was whoever I think it's the USA Network is getting SmackDown once the Fox deal ends, if I remember correctly. It was probably USA coming down saying we want Roman Reigns on our show when he returns. We do not want him on Netflix, and so it's just obviously the kayfabe way of keeping him on the brand where the powers that be demanded he stay.
Yeah, I get all that. I don't know. I feel like they should have played into the draft idea more.
Yeah,
if you're gonna make it a thing, you make it a thing.
You know yeah, I agree. I didn't catch.
I just don't like when they half-ass things.
Yeah,
I just feel like it's lazy. Like, Roman refuses.
This whole show kind of felt lazy, to be honest.
That's very fair. It did. Like it really did. Randy Orton was the 5th overall pick to SmackDown.
Which again, him going over Jay. I get Jay is on a different show than Randy, but still, it's very clear the predetermined shows that they wanted these people on.
Right.
So
I feel like it was just like, all right, these are the guys we're going. We don't care what order they're going to go in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exactly. Because it doesn't fully make sense where some of these people went.
Right. Just like, again, lazy booking.
Yeah.
And then Braun breaking a Raw. I like that.
Yep.
I do like that a lot.
And then in 5 minutes afterwards, he squashed Cedric Alexander, or 5 minutes before.
I love that squash matches are back.
Yeah.
I like,
and that they're not using enhancement talent, that they're just using guys who haven't been on the pro. Because again, it could open the door for a down the road, Cedric Alexander's pissed that he keeps getting squashed, so he aligns himself with the faction that could, you know what I mean? Like it just gives the possibility of someone to have a little little bit of juice and a little bit of a story to why they do some things going further. Not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm glad that it's talent on the roster and not enhancement talent.
Yeah, I like that. I can agree with that. 7th overall, Nia Jax to SmackDown, the talentless, sizable woman that is Nia Jax. Don't find her entertaining. Don't think she's good in the ring. She hurts people, and she's just lazy.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of hers either, and I think it's crazy. This is the second woman taken, right? If I'm not mistaken. So what are we doing?
Yep.
Are we drafting
right
talent?
after Bianca? Yeah.
Like, are we drafting talent, or are we again showing that it's just these are who's going where on what show?
Which is the problem is they're supposed to be building a brand and building a show, and it just doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason to any of this. Like I get early in the rounds, like you know what I mean. Raw takes Rollins, and like so you're trying to keep the talent on your show. Okay, that I get that idea. You're trying to protect it, but then you just
like you're telling me that like Nia Jax gets taken over Liv Morgan. She gets taken over Naomi.
Right over Liv Morgan because Liv Morgan was taken next to Raw.
It's weird. It's just lazy. It was very lazy.
It just felt like they just kept a bunch of the guys on the same rosters.
Yeah, that was the biggest complaint that I saw is that nobody really changed shows. Nothing was going on. It was just it seems very clear that they were just trying to have a draft show in the middle of the NFL draft.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Man, I do this all the time where I hit a button and I have no idea what happened. Yeah, at least switch it up a little bit, like change the rosters.
Yeah. Or if you're going to keep a lot of people the same on the very first show, don't have them all staying on the same show. Like make splashes on Friday to make me want to watch Monday. Don't make Friday stale so I don't care about Monday.
Right. Because they didn't do a good job of that. I don't know. Because then you get LA Knight to SmackDown, another guy staying in place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh no, like, and you can also tell, and it kind of goes with Roman Reigns staying on SmackDown. That clearly, I think that a lot of the people staying on SmackDown were or had involvement from USA. Whoever or maybe Fox, because Fox still does have the rights to SmackDown, but it was very clear that some of the bigger draws are staying or going to SmackDown.
Ricochet stays on Raw. That's the next pick.
Mm-hmm. He's our new speed champion, by the way. Not that we are technically supposed to know that.
He is?
Yeah. It leaked. They had the title match, I think, after SmackDown went off air, and someone took a picture and put it online. So because it's him and JD McDonough for the Speed Championship in the final, and it looks like Ricochet won that championship.
Well, that's an interesting move, I guess.
But I like Ricochet a lot, so I'm glad that he was. I don't know if this is, but see, and here's the other weird thing: like, is this technically him being drafted high, or is this a low draft pick? Because now, if they're not drafted tonight, are we going to still see big stars go top overall on Monday? Did they?
Right.
I don't remember them making it very clear if there was like a draft pool for Friday and a draft pool for Monday. So I don't know if I'm happy that he went on the first day or if I should be appalled that he went as low as he did.
As far as we all know, it's all one draft pool.
Yeah.
Like there's no other. Yeah, and 10th overall for Ricochet, okay, but like you're saying, is that good or bad?
Exactly, because you don't know if it's because it was towards the end of the show. Like, is it towards the end of the draft of the pool? Like.
But so many stars weren't even drafted.
Yeah. There was
sense.
So few picks that were done. Like you're right. And I'm hoping that because it's just a 2-hour show that it's going to be more of like a waterfall or like a cascade of stars getting picked on Monday. But I mean, if you're trying to make your wrestling product draft mirror the NFL, you picked like the wrong parts of the NFL draft to implement into your program. I mean, you really did. They should have had jerseys with a printer with a group of people in the back printing names as soon as they're freaking called in, coming out with like a jersey or something, ripping promo, like something like something.
And you need a commissioner. Then you need a commissioner.
Well, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Well, it should have been.
You have Triple H announce the picks and you have 2 GMs.
Yeah. which they've done in the past, and they
Right.
have that in place. So I don't know why they focus too much on like the draft rooms, like
Right.
the war rooms, which I will say it was kind of cool because you did see Bubba Ray was, I think, in the SmackDown war room. I could be wrong. He was in one of the war rooms. I know the Dudleys did
They
announce
did
a
a pick.
pick.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that maybe Bubba Ray's back in the WWE as like a producer or something. I'm not 100% sure.
I would hope
But
so.
like the
He's a
war
good
room,
wrestling mind.
the war room concept was interesting, but like it's the only thing they did different. Like that. It was just it was so poorly done.
Yeah, they just didn't. I don't think they handled it right this time.
No, God no.
I don't see it because you have Ricochet, and then 11th overall you have the Bloodline. So Solo, Tama Tonga, and Paul Heyman to SmackDown. This is the first group that was drafted together.
Yep.
I don't get it. Like,
and
okay,
why weren't they picked higher?
Right.
Like they're the hottest thing. Well, I guess this iteration isn't necessarily the hottest thing in wrestling, but like the tagline for the Bloodline and this story that continues to keep going, it's still a very high profile story in wrestling. And and again, this is going back to I don't understand how we're supposed to view this draft, because were they drafted at the end of the show as more like the, oh my God, like the Bloodline last, end of the show, big money, pick, or are we supposed to view them as like, wow, the Bloodline is really fallen now? They're, end of the show, end of the draft pool. Like none of this makes any sense. In the NFL, the longer you wait to get drafted, the lower down you are on the totem pole.
Right.
But like if someone goes number 1 on Monday, are like I didn't see Drew McIntyre get picked. You know what I mean? I didn't see Sheamus.
Sheamus got picked next.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Sheamus got picked next.
Who am I thinking of then?
But then AJ Styles gets picked after all these guys.
Yeah. And again, this brings me back to like AJ's in a feud with Cody Rhodes. They did a contract signing to open the show. So how is he not just automatically on SmackDown? Because like, are we supposed to believe that on Monday, like he might have gone to Raw and ruined this whole thing? Like, obviously not. You just did a contract signing for him to compete on against Cody Rhodes, who's the champion of SmackDown. So how like, oh, SmackDown's got AJ Styles, like go figure. Like nothing happened that was exciting or overdone. Like the Carmelo Hayes pick was the only one that was cool and exciting, but it was also like you knew he was getting picked high. Like him and Braun, you knew they were getting picked.
But I feel like this devalues their draft pick because nobody else was taken high. Like none of their real superstars was taken high.
It's very confusing.
It just it's like they just I don't get it. 13th overall was AJ, 14th was Chad Gable to Raw. Then 15th was Andrade to SmackDown, and then Kiana James was the last one.
She genuinely seemed surprised when they interviewed her after that pick too. Like genuinely, she seemed shocked, which I thought was hilarious.
Maybe that was their intended goal for her.
It's possible, yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe they didn't tell her when she was getting drafted. I feel like they were lazy with this.
Very, very lazy. And it's not just us saying this. I mean, they're getting flamed online and in social media about how this draft played out on Friday. It was the laziest implementation, and it was so confusing. Like that's like the theory, like the prevailing thought that I have from Friday was I was just very confused.
Yeah, and that's probably the best way to put it. Like all the wrestling fans were just in a state of confusion with them. Like how they handled this, what draft picks went where, like how the draft is, where's the rest of the draft picks, why are they going on Monday night instead of the first night? Like I don't, like you said, where's Drew McIntyre?
Yeah, exactly. Like how is Drew not one of the top picks? Right. Like were they not picking him because they were unsure of his contract situation and waiting for him to officially sign before they draft him, which would make sense. But it wasn't like it wasn't ever put out there. So like we're just guessing at that point. So it's so weird. There were so many other people that should have been chosen at any point in this night that just didn't go.
Right. It was just a very strange way to go about this whole thing. I just didn't understand what they were doing at all. Like it's you kind of handicap yourself when you say none of the champions can switch too, because there goes some of your biggest names. If you want to say your world champions, like the men's and women's world champions, that's fine. The tag team champions and stuff. Okay, now we're getting in kind of murky water, but the US and the IC title and like these are big names that could have switched hands.
Yeah, so I'll agree with you to this extent on that. Is I think the mid card titles could switch brands because they're
Right.
completely like non-specialized titles.
Yeah.
But like they have officially set like the World Heavyweight Championship on Raw mirrors the Women's World Heavyweight Championship. It mirrors the Tag Team Championship. So you can't bring those to SmackDown and flip flop now because you've specifically created a look for these titles on one brand. So
Right.
I agree to it. I agree to a point where I think maybe the U.S. and Intercontinental could have been flip flop because those don't have a look that's synonymous with the other titles that are on their respective brands. But if you're going to introduce like obviously SmackDown's titles, the women's and the men's look identical. The tag team champions are not mirroring the other two, but on Raw everything's the same. The World Heavyweight Championship and the Women's World Heavyweight Championship all have the same design as with the World Tag Team Champions. It's just a smaller, classic WCW championship-like design. And so I think you can't swap those titles, and then you can't have the champions flip and then have them exchange titles because I've said it before, it just looks dumb. To me, it looks really stupid to just be like, oh, okay, now I get your championship and you get mine. And I don't like that either. No, you should only be touching another title if you're fighting for it and winning it. You shouldn't just be swapping them like they're friggin' trading cards. It just that rubs me the wrong way.
No, I agree with that. I just don't know. They weren't very clear on the rules on what they were doing. And they just did it. They were lazy again, like we said. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse on that, but again, you need to have your superstars. Like, it wouldn't have hurt to have Drew McIntyre go to SmackDown. It wouldn't hurt to have a big name switch a brand because this was just stale. Like, you kept a lot of the guys on the same shows.
Yeah.
Draft more NXT talent and surprise us in the early rounds. Then.
Yeah, like why didn't Dragunov get drafted? This dude was literally just the NXT champion, and he wasn't drafted on the first night.
What about Gunther? Why didn't Gunther get drafted? He was on the show.
Yeah,
he was the longest reigning Intercontinental champ. Why wouldn't you swap shows for him or do something? You know what I mean? Like, do something with
at least call his name.
Right,
and that brings me back to like why Jay was picked first. Like, why not? if like Gunther is your next big star, or at least your next big heel, your next big champion. He might be the one to dethrone Cody. He might be the one to take the championship off Drew or off of Jay or off of Damian or if I'm lucky, maybe Finn. Why was he not picked over Jay? Zero sense.
Right. They just didn't handle it well. I'm trying to shut something off here. Sorry. All right. I got it. Yeah. I don't know. They just really dropped the ball on this. Like maybe Monday it's going to be like chock full of surprises, and they were hoping that was maybe what it was going to be. But unless they do something drastic, I don't think Monday's going to be any more entertaining.
Yeah, it'd be crazy to me to think that they would have such a lackluster show on Friday leading up to Monday when you would want to have a crazy show on Friday to get people to be like, man, I need to see what happens on Monday. Friday was crazy. I need to tune
Unless
back
they're
in.
thinking that they weren't going to compete with the NFL draft on Friday night because it was the second and third rounds were on Friday night.
Very true, and that's also very possible as well. But still.
But then they should have planned it better and did it on a different week.
Exactly, or not even planned it better, just done something crazy to get people to be like, oh my God, well, like my favorite team's not picking right now. I should flip over to SmackDown to see what the hell's going on because my social media feed's blowing up, or why is this trending on X? Like that's what something like that should have done. Which if we're gonna go down this road, they did a lot of cryptic teases on SmackDown for the new stable that's obviously at this point going to be run by Bo Dallas. If you look into it, some of the decrypted stuff, April 29th was like a date that was thrown out there. So it's possible that we might actually see or get more concrete information on that stable as of on Monday.
Which will be cool because maybe it's been a slow burn for this one.
Yeah, and there's been very little information about it, but like it's interesting with all the different things. Like you click this and you take a quiz and you enter different names that bring you different places, give you different results, and they're making it really interactive, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm just really hoping the payoff is worth it because it can go bad very quickly if it's just
Especially putting this much effort in, it can go the other way very quickly, especially
I
with WWE fans.
yeah, I still think this is going to be so special that at least the first time everything's introduced,
Mm.
unless they like really do it super corny or dumb, like it's gonna be a hit.
I
I
think no matter what, it's going to go over. It's just a matter of after that initial pop and initial wow, what are you going to do with it?
yeah,
Because eventually that nostalgia and all that like excitement wears off. You know what I mean? Like you can't carry that forever.
I really think it's gonna be Bo with Rowan, Strowman, and Bliss, and they're the last of the last surviving, which is crazy to think about. Members of relation to Bray. They could
Yep.
say that they were part of Bray's family, Bray's, the Wyatt family, because they
Yep.
keep saying like, you forgot about us, like don't forget about us, know who you are. So I could really see those three being part of this faction. And then maybe the fifth person stays anonymous and they draw that out, so there's still some mystery. And obviously the sixth will always be Bray. They'll never fill that sixth. I really do think it's going to be like a Wyatt six kind of thing. And I at this point, I'm pretty certain it's going to be the last two surviving members of the Wyatt family with Alexa Bliss, because she obviously was also heavily associated with Bray before obviously his untimely passing. So I'm looking that will have me tuning in on Monday, but I don't think that's going to, I'm not the same as probably 80% of other wrestling fans. You know what I mean? So
yeah, no, I mean, I do want to see the payoff for this. I want to see how they handle it. I want to see exactly what they're gonna do moving forward with them. Because there's so many different ways. I don't know if I was them if I would do the Wyatt Six. Call it the Wyatt Six, because then you paint yourself in a corner where you need 5 members. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I think. A payoff, because you can do the payoff to the announcement and then still have a, for a month or a little while if you want to burn it longer. There's 4 in the Wyatt Six, and obviously, like I said, the fifth member is Bray, but who's this mysterious sixth person? And they just keep saying like, we're not ready to bring this person out, or we're not ready to show this person, or this person's operating in the shadows, and you'll see them when we're ready. And it doesn't have to be someone who's necessarily there right now, or it could, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different ways they can go about it.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know if you've seen some of the news. There is some big wrestling news that came out. MJF just had surgery.
Yeah, I that's crazy. This dude's been out for so long, and he just recently, because I guess something in his recovery didn't go the way they planned, and that's why they had to go. I don't know. Was this cleanup surgery though, or was this like repair? Like I didn't see that.
There's not much on it because MJF keeps it a secret.
I didn't see if it was like a cleanup procedure or if it was a like, no, we got to reattach some shit procedure.
I didn't see exactly the nature of the
Yeah, they did it. I don't remember seeing it either.
I don't think MJF let that out. I think it's all. I mean, we just found out he had surgery. God knows how long this has been the plan or what happened, because he could have been just rehabbing the injury like they like to do sometimes, and it wasn't going well, and that's when they decided, or this was the plan all along, and it just kept getting pushed off for some reason.
I'd hoped that it wasn't planned that he needed surgery and they waited this long, because it's like shades of Chris Sale or Trevor Story, where they're like, he may need injury, but let's see if we can rehab it back to life, and then they rehab it and they try to go again, and they're like, oh no, this shit's fucked. Like we're gonna go in and surgically repair stuff, and then you miss another 8 to 12 months, or maybe in this case it's 6. But I would hope that it wasn't a like we're gonna rehab it and see how it goes. Like in this industry, especially for AEW, who's clamoring for views, if someone might need surgery, and you get to a point where, because I know Mac Jones had this thing with his ankle when he had the high ankle sprain, where there was the procedure they could do where they can go in and like brace it, and you can come back in like 2 weeks or something and you'd be fine, or you could rehab it and be back in 4 to 6. So maybe MJF didn't want surgery initially, wanted to rehab it, and then they couldn't avoid it. Because everyone is entitled to their own.
So I just read something online through somebody who covers AEW, I guess Jason Solomon, and he said a bit of news, hearing through the grapevine that it will be a while before we see MJF back in the ring. Physical therapy was not a success, and he had to go under the knife.
Yeah, so it sounds like somebody was hoping that surgery could be avoidable, and it was not avoidable.
Right. Which happens in some injuries. So, I mean, I get it.
I hope that it wasn't like, hey, you probably need surgery. You may be fine if you rehab it. And then him or somebody was like, yeah, let's try to rehab it then. Because a lot of times it doesn't pay off. A lot of times if something requires surgery and there's a possibility that just resting it and rehabbing it can fix it, it doesn't tend to go to plan. What happened?
Apparently Darby Allin was hit by a bus in New York City.
Really?
Yep. That's what I'm just reading. He was badly hurt today in New York City. Allin said on his Instagram account that he was crossing the street and then got hit by a bus. As seen below, his face was hurt pretty badly, but he also added that he was able to see his show on Broadway, so he's apparently not in the hospital, and he appears that he'll be okay. Yeah, hit by a bus. What a wild move. Yeah, his face was pretty messed up in the picture that I saw.
Oh, yeah, huh?
That's not great.
Holy wow.
You see it now?
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, he got his face.
If I had seen that before, I would have put a picture up on the screen. But yeah, holy crap, dude. That's intense. Like, that's really intense.
Wow.
Whoa.
Was that the one of him?
Lashley. I was trying to figure out if this was oh, it's a storyline firing. All right, never mind. Bobby Lashley was fired, quote unquote, by the WWE.
Oh, from the
from that stupid thing on the Raw.
Yeah.
But what else was there? There was a couple other things that I had seen. How do you feel about the Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan storyline going on? He showed up to the hospital or whatever it was. Like, it just seems like that's the route they're going. She's going to try to take it from Rhea.
I mean, I don't know. I still, it depends. If it's just trying to keep the heat on Dom, then sure. If it's trying to flip Dom into be more of a face, because I think the Judgment Day is going to implode soon.
Oh, without a doubt, that's coming soon.
And again, this is me being a homer. I think that Finn getting a new contract and Finn being a Triple H guy means that at some point within the next year or two, Finn is going to get a push to the top of the card again. Just like Damien's getting his push. I think they're trying to separate Dom from the Judgment Day. I think, I think they're setting it up to there's going to be some kind of triangle, not necessarily like a love triangle, but there's going to be some kind of weird triangle thing going on between Rhea, Liv, and Dom. And I don't know. I mean, if creative's been better, so I'm going to let it play out and see how it goes. Don't love it, but it's also not the feud that or the situation I'm paying attention to. So, I'm indifferent. You know what I mean? We'll see what happens. If I get interested, great. If it's stupid, you'll hear it here.
I don't like complaining about stuff like, and I know we do it, but it's just like breaking some of the stuff down and like their I was looking to find a picture of something here, but I couldn't find it.
Well, hopefully people who watch this will stop, throwing stones about us just like hammering AEW.
Right. Because we'll hammer anything that's not right.
Yeah, AEW is awful right now. And I saw a great meme. Actually, I don't know. Did you send it to me? It was a meme. It was that meme of the guy next to a grave that's throwing the deuces sign, but it had CM Punk's face on it. And the tombstone said, quotes, Tony Khan, I will not be an on-air personality or something like that from what he said back in 2017. And it's just CM Punk just keeps winning.
Right. I did send that to you.
Okay, that was you. All right.
Yeah. I mean, you can't say something and then go back because it wasn't. Nobody ever thought one way or another about it. You know what I mean? Like, and then he just put himself out there and screwed it all up. Another little piece of news. It looks like NXT is going to be doing a show at the Apex, which is the UFC.
Yep. Saw
that they do small events at. How do you feel about that? Because you're not like a big UFC guy, right?
No, not really. I never really got into like actual combat sports, which is really funny as like a wrestling fan. Like I like fake fighting, but not real fighting. I mean, like the knockouts are cool, but again, it comes down to like I have a hard time like paying like a lot of money for certain events and stuff like that. The only reason I watch live events for WWE is because I pay for Peacock. So like if I wasn't paying $5 a month, I'd have a hard time shelling out. Like it's the same thing for
as
AEW.
a UFC fan, dude. It's crazy because you have to pay for ESPN Plus and then the pay-per-views.
Yeah, and I've never been really a big fan of that kind of stuff, so I've never really gotten into it. I mean, it is cool seeing some of the knockouts, like the one from UFC 300 that was like literally an anime, like just back. These two dudes are just like, we're just gonna start throwing fists and see what the fuck happens. And
yeah, that was it. So that was for the bad motherfucker title too.
Yeah,
so like that was like a perfect way to end that. Like
that stuff's cool. But there was there was a knockout that happened a year or two ago that was like it was a highly anticipated match that people were so crazy about, and it was like a 3-second match with a knockout, and literally it was like posted on X or Twitter or Bleacher Report like an hour later, and it's like, yeah, if you didn't pay for this, here's the full match, and it was a 3-second clip of a guy getting knocked out, and it was like, see, I'd be pissed if I paid $50 for this big match, and I get it's UFC, like you can't control how someone's gonna get knocked in the face, but like that's the kind of stuff that kind of doesn't do it for me. Some matches get really slow. I'm not a big submission guy. I'm not a big grapple guy. I'd just rather see some dudes just throw fists at each other for an hour.
Yeah, I agree with that. One more news story before we jump into the pay-per-view that I watched. Did you finish it?
I skimmed through it. Yeah, I've watched it from start to finish, but I scrubbed some pieces so I could get through it a little faster.
I took some notes between last night and today, and we're gonna get into it. I actually enjoyed the show, and then we'll give it a rating. But this was something I meant to hit on Friday, but forgot about, and it was Tony Khan pretty much calling the WWE Harvey Weinstein. Like, what? How do you not get it, Tony? Like, okay, you want to make the cute jokes and make your marks laugh? All right, that's one thing, dude. And while the allegations against Vince are what they are, and they're disgusting if they're true, we don't know if they're true yet, and that's a pretty ballsy move to be throwing that kind of stuff out there.
I'll say this. Yeah, they're allegations. I think having seen the product that the WWE put out in the 90s and the early 2000s, I'm going to guess the allegations are probably more truthful than they are fictitious. Just saying.
Maybe.
But it is calling an entire organization, like calling the WWE as a whole the Harvey Weinstein of wrestling is insane. If he was like, yeah, Vince McMahon is the Harvey Weinstein, but like the whole WWE, man, like the whole company, whole corporation, like some people just trying to make $1 and go to work, and you're just associating this brand with that in at least your mind to the point where you're saying it out loud. He is whatever. I wish I was a billionaire with a billionaire father too, so it's easy for me to throw stones. Money. But like, this dude's a clown. He is an absolute clown.
Yep, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's all he is. It's like so bad, dude. Every time he talks, have you seen the video of him dancing like in on the TV screen or whatever it was? I forgot to send it to you. It was just a brutal video of him being awkward with that neck brace and just doing like stupid. It was so cringy, dude. It's like he's constantly a cringe meme waiting to happen.
He just can't stop.
Yeah, that's the problem. Just shut up, dude.
Yeah, like just
shut up.
Let other people run the business and make your money. Like, you don't need to force anything because it's already happening.
Yeah, and it just it baffles me that he keeps going at it and not leaving it alone. All right, so let's jump into it. We are going to review today, thanks to the generator and also that documentary that I watched the other night, Bash at the Beach 2000, baby. One of WCW's most infamous pay-per-views. I think that's the right way to put that.
I would have to say the most, knowing how it ended.
Yeah, knowing how it ended and pretty much like the storyline that went into it, dude.
And what happened afterwards.
Yeah, a little crazy, dude. Like, little crazy. So there's a whole story behind it, and we're going to get into it pretty quickly because it happens. They get into it pretty relatively early in the show. But to start the show, right? So we're going to review the pay-per-view and give it a score of 1 to 10. If you guys have ever watched Dave Portnoy, he does the pizza reviews. He gives like a figure skating score at the end of his pizza review. That's kind of what we're going to do, and we'll keep track and try to keep a list of what pay-per-views we think inevitably are the better ones that we've watched. And I mean, we might end up in some real trash pay-per-views here. I'm not going to lie. Like, this one wasn't great, but it also wasn't bad.
Can't
They
wait.
started out with Juventud Guerrero versus Chavo Guerrero.
Yeah, which was it was a fun match. So the first thing I noticed right off the rip, which kind of makes me laugh a little bit, is like Rey Mysterio is maskless. So like it kind of takes the allure away from like, oh, you gotta take his mask off, like as it is now, and him continuing to wrestle with the mask, because like, dude, like we know what you look like because he still tries to hide his face, and it's like, bro, like you were in a faction for months.
Yeah,
without your luchador mask, like
I think that was such a mistake to take the mask off of Ray.
It was funny though. The first thing is this thing's coming up, and I just hear Mysterio Jr. and I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, dude. It was interesting. They had both of their factions banned from ringside, so we got
which lasted long.
Yeah, which we mostly got a match full of just Chavo and Juventud going back and forth, which great match in the ring. Like both of those guys can wrestle and they're exciting. This is what I was talking about on Friday. The mid card is your most important section of the card. You have guys like this that can just flat out go in the ring. They start off your show with a bang.
Yep.
And that's something WCW did very well when they were on top of the world was showcase guys like this from like different countries and even different sizes and all that stuff. Like
they had a ridiculous light and cruiserweight division. Most of
it was like New Japan guys or guys from Mexico, the Luchadors.
Yep. Yeah, it's where Psychosis was introduced to the American the American fan base. Mm-hmm. I think Vampiro was also I think he was a luchador, if I'm not mistaken, or someone from that background. I don't know if he was
he did wrestle from that background. He was big in Mexico and then signed to WCW that way. But they had La Parca. They had
La Parca is another one.
Like Psychosis, like you said. Like I have a La Parca mask somewhere around here. Yeah. But Rey Mysterio had a Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, Benoit. They had a bunch of guys that made their bones on the mid card of their programs because they showcased that kind of talent, which was cool. Yeah, I thought it was a good way to start. Then they had the factions come in, kind of run in. They didn't really affect the match too much besides a distraction.
Yeah, there was I forget her name, but one of the girls in the faction was obviously a big distraction for
yes.
Part of it didn't work. There was a couple near falls.
Right. I forgot who that was. But yeah, you're right. Yeah. She was definitely a distraction.
There's only two names of the women that were involved in the show that I remember, and it's because they obviously went on to do other things in other programs. We'll get to those eventually.
Yeah. And then so Chavo retains the Cruiserweight title and on a mean tornado DDT.
Yeah.
That thing was amazing looking too.
Yep.
And then we get Jeff Jarrett backstage talking about, is Hulk Hogan really going to show up for the match?
The entire night, it just kept. And I still don't. Who was the general manager? What was that guy's name?
Oh my God! It was the cat. Oh my God! I'm drawing a
because the whole time I'm looking at him and I'm like, why is Dennis Rodman the GM for WCW? And then I was like, oh wait a minute, that's not Dennis Rodman, but like that's kind of what they're trying to do is make him kind of look like that. But yeah, the whole show is he just kept getting hounded about, is Hogan showing up? Where's Hogan? What's going on with Hogan? And there was a lot of weird things going on in the backgrounds of all the shots they showed of the GM too.
Ernest Miller. It was Ernest the Cat Miller. Yeah. And they had those the Japanese wrestlers just popping out doing like cheesy cartoon Japanese stuff to him, like with karate. It was weird.
Yeah. It was like the first thing they showed was him getting out of the limousine, and the the samurais or whatever, the ninjas came out and like attacked him or something. And I was like, well, what's happening? Like without context, it's like this is insane. You're all insane.
Exactly. And that's one of the joys of getting a random pay-per-view is like we forget the backstory and then we get these random segments that are like, what the hell? Like what the hell? It might have made sense if we watched like all the nitros and all that stuff going, but it was just a weird thing. It wasn't well done either. It was very cheesy.
Yeah.
Very cheesy. So yeah, Jeff Jarrett comes out. Hogan better be here. All this stuff hounded him, and the announcers talk about how Hogan hasn't been showing up or whatever, and it was just strange. And then they jump right into it, and it's Big Vito. He cuts like a big promo. He's the hardcore champ, which I forgot he was a hardcore champ. I forgot that WCW even had a hardcore championship.
Yep.
until I saw it, and then I remembered some of the matches like Bam Bam Bigelow and Balls Mahoney, all these other guys. That Sandman was there for a little while.
Basically,
after
the ECW guys that had to
COVID,
go somewhere.
essentially, and not a bad idea for WCW to try to like market that and get that part of their show because it was a big part in the late '90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
So like I didn't hate it, but Big Vito was a really weird choice. And he cut one of the worst promos I ever heard on that show. Like that was awful, dude. It was so bad. And then Storm and Norman Smiley comes out with Jericho's old personal security, Ralph. And they made it a handicap match.
Yeah, it was wild. And it wasn't a bad hardcore match. Like I thought the ending was pretty good too.
I love the ending because he sends Norman Smiley on an elevator to a different floor, then goes back to the ring where apparently, for some godforsaken reason, the pinfall has to occur in the ring.
Yeah.
Which that was one of those WCW things that, like, if you're going to have a hardcore championship, it doesn't matter where it falls. But they were like, no, the pin happens in the ring.
Yeah, it's still wrestling, god damn it.
Right. And then they have Norman. So Norman's out in left field getting rode to an elevator somewhere. And then they have Ralph, who, by the way, you watch that match. The worst spots was him hitting Vito with the trash can cover because it was so bad. Like, I don't know if he was. Yes, dude. It was so bad. It was soft. He didn't know what to do with it. Like, and at one point, he just stopped. Like, and then I think Vito punched him or something like that. But he was stopped for a good 10 seconds before anything happened. I don't think he was supposed to stop there.
And the ending was the best part, though. Like, they couldn't put him on a table standing up, so they put him on the table sideways and then just, like, hit him with a splash through the half-angled table because obviously this dude's not going to be able to stay on a table. Like, you're not getting him on the table, and he's not going to stay on the table in one piece. It was
and then Norman Smiley's, like, starts jogging down to the ring and then stops running at one point and is like walking. I'm like, whoa, he's really in a rush.
Yeah. Like, someone got there a little too early for their spot.
That's all I could think of was like, wow, he got out there way too early and then had to make it look like he was trying to get to the ring. Like it was, but man, that elevator spot was like a million IQ move right there. Like that was perfect. I thought that was hilarious. Like some of the stuff you got to laugh at. You know what I mean? Like it was. That was one of those things that I got a good chuckle out of because the match wasn't bad between Norman and Vito, and then it just took a turn when they decided to go right to Ralph. Like, the finish probably should have happened with Norman and Vito.
Yeah.
And then we get a very interesting match. Miss Hancock, aka Stacy Keibler, versus Daphne in a wedding gown match.
This also made no sense to me with no context. At some point, someone took his pants off and just
they were
wrestling.
fighting for David Flair, right? But Daphne didn't want David Flair back, and Stacy Keibler apparently head over heels in love with David Flair. And they randomly just ripped his pants off at one point.
It was weird, and then they had to they got a cake fight. And there was cake everywhere, and they had to like literally pause the show for like 20 minutes and like just do other things while they literally mopped the side of the ring because there was cake everywhere.
Canyon randomly came out during this match and ripped his own pants off too.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, like that's what I was saying. Like he randomly came out and just took his own pants off.
They ripped David Flair's pants off for some reason.
Yeah,
and then they ripped the ref's pants off, and then Canyon rips his own pants off. And then, it got all colluded at the end where Stacy Keibler ends up ripping her own stuff off because she says, I know what you came to see. Not a bad move.
Facts.
Not a bad move. I'm not mad at that. I love Stacy Keibler. She just starts ripping her own clothes off, which causes her to lose the match.
Yeah.
Right? And then, like you said, they stop it. Like, Daphne stops her from stripping for some reason. Heel move to me. And then they make a mess with the cake. And then it takes them 10 minutes to clean it.
Yeah.
I think they ended up just taking the mats off.
It was something like that. Yeah. Like I scrubbed through it, but I saw them like sitting there, like trying to mop the cake off. And I'm like, this is such bad planning. Like if you don't have a plan of what to do with the cake once it's been
Oh, dude, they
Just
tried to mop it
destroyed
up and just made a bigger mess. I
Yeah.
watched it and I'm like, what the hell's going on, dude? Like it was a really strange, like it's almost like a lot of WCW kind of cashed in mentally before this paper.
Well, it was at that time period, if we're
Yeah.
being honest. Like, it really was around that time period when it went straight
Yeah.
off a cliff.
It really did. It's like I think it was right in between the sales because they thought that Bischoff was going to end up buying it. I don't know how many people remember that, but Eric Bischoff was part of a group. He was going to headline the group that was going to buy WCW. He had AOL on board. This was obviously during the big boom period of AOL. And Bischoff would have ran the day-to-day operations and tried to resurrect what was WCW, but it had gone through so much, like between Russo and Bischoff and just the mess of a contracts that they had with the creative control, which actually plays out into this show, which is crazy to me. But we had a match right after that was way ahead of its time. It was the Vampiro match.
Yeah. Cinematic matches before cinematic matches were really cinematic matches.
Right, and it wasn't bad.
No, but this was another thing, though, that if you, like, watching it with no context, you were just kind of like, what the F is going on? Like, and then not for nothing, but, like, obviously, the concrete slab that the demon gets hit with is not real, but, like, they still were depicting Vampiro, like, killing this guy. Like, if that way, like, because if we're supposed to believe that's like a real concrete slab that he picked up pretty easily, if we're being honest, and smashes him with it, like, Tony Schiavone was like selling it like he was dead. He was like, hey, he's dead. Wait, he's got to be dead, as he throws him into the casket and knocks it over into the grave. Like, dude, it was wild. Like, absolutely wild.
It was crazy, dude. Vampiro ends up winning, and then they end up doing something later on in the show, which we'll get to from Vampiro, which, again, with no context, just blows me away. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But yeah, that match was cool. I thought it was again, way ahead of its time because we saw, we kind of saw cinematic matches play out a lot more, obviously, with during
the pandemic.
But also before the pandemic with Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy's the one that brought that back. Yeah. And he did
I realized delete. I'm saying delete. That could be taken out of context. It's what Matt Hardy does for anyone who doesn't actually watch wrestling. He says delete, and so that's.
I'm just gonna clip that and put it up on our Instagram.
Let's move on.
We're just gonna clip it and put that on. And then we have the franchise versus Mike Awesome, the Fat Chick Thriller. I'm not making that up. He actually had that on his little thing, which was strange. That was a weird match. It wasn't great. I like Shane Douglas too. I thought Shane Douglas was really good in this prime. Yeah, this wasn't one of his better matches at all.
No, I mean, I think it goes. It's also who you're in the ring with, and it's just if the other person isn't able to work with you or willing to work with you, it kind of makes making the match itself look good and making yourself look good.
Yeah, that's very fair. And then we get Jeff Jarrett versus Hogan finally on the card. Obviously advertised as the main event, which was weird because we still had plenty of show left. But
at the time you wouldn't have known that though.
No, but they still had matches left on the card. Like they still didn't get through all their matches. They still had Goldberg versus Nash, and what was it?
I thought that happened before the.
And I think they still.
No, you're right.
And they still had the Booker T match too.
Yeah, well, the Booker T match I'm pretty sure happened way before Booker T and Canyon, right?
Did it? I might have had the timeline mixed up, but that was a nothing match anyway, where Booker T loses, which was strange.
No. But I do want to point out though that it was fun. One, that I'd forgotten that Canyon was doing this before DDP, which I think is hilarious. And two, the Canyon Cutter, they had alluded to it on the programming when he hit the Canyon Cutter off of the turnbuckle, where they said the Canyon Cutter, the best part about this move is it can come out of nowhere and happen at any time. And it's like, wow, what move is a cutter that happens out of nowhere? Like, so you're saying that this has been done before. And in
all fairness, though, Orton has never hid that. And he has said that from day one, that he got the idea from Canyon and DDP.
I just think it's crazy. I'm more alluding to, I'm not really trying to be negative to WWE, as I'm saying that as much as people shit on WCW, they were
Yes.
way ahead of their time.
Yes, they were. With some stuff, they were ahead of their time, but they just didn't showcase it enough to grab everybody's attention.
Well, and I think the time frame back then too, some of this some of the stuff just didn't hit like it would, years later. And like cinematic matches still aren't huge, but like the AJ Styles and the Undertaker cinematic match, like that was more to hide the fact that the Undertaker really can't wrestle anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
and they did a good job on that one too, which
that match was amazing. That, like, for what it was, that was amazing. I mean, I'll never forget AJ Styles standing up on the top of it was like a garage, and all of a sudden, like, the Undertaker's just behind him, and like his face as he turned, like, it's great. That kind of stuff is fantastic.
And also the Firefly Funhouse match was fun.
Yes.
Like that was another good cinematic match that I actually enjoyed.
Like, because there was always a
cinematic match I did not enjoy was the Money in the Bank one.
Yeah, that was bad. Some of the spots were cool. I liked some of the spots that they were able to do, because I do think that the idea of them, this is the video gamer in me, but the idea of them like fighting and like moving up to the top of a tower to claim the briefcase is like
I love that
shooter kind of thing.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I love that idea.
Yeah, it just didn't work out well in its entirety.
Right. I love the idea that they work through corporate
and that WWE. Both were going on at the same time. I thought was really cool. Baron Corbin was like choke slammed off of the building or something. Like, there were some really cool spots.
No, Rey Mysterio, right? It was Rey Mysterio that
one of them. Someone was like thrown off the side of the building or something.
Yeah, it was something crazy, but they just didn't execute it well. The idea was there, it just didn't execute.
I think Otis was the one who won that too, wasn't he?
Unfortunately,
was that Otis? Yeah, like anticlimactic.
Yeah, awful ending. Because whatever.
Speaking of almost awful endings,
Hogan versus Jarrett. So Jarrett's music plays. It goes through a full time. Then the second time it hits, Vince Russo comes out. The commentators were confused. Everybody was confused. Nobody knew what was happening. Then Hogan gets introduced. Hogan comes out, which surprises people. And then Jarrett eventually, his music hits. He comes out and he looks pissed when he's coming out. Like, he looked pissed.
Yep.
Like, and the bell rings. Jarrett just lays down. Doesn't do anything else. Just lays down. Vince Russo holds the belt up, throws the belt in the ring, and tells him, "There, you want it? Take it." And then the announcer's like, "What the hell's going on here?" Like, but the crowd. This is what I found funny. The crowd starts chanting, "Russo sucks." You know what I mean? Because they don't know. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
so,
they just think
this is a Russo move.
Yeah.
And, Hogan tries to cut this promo of, this is why the company's in the shits. Yeah, it is. And then you find out, like, through, later on, obviously, like, I don't remember if it was on the dirt sheets back then. I don't remember it, but it was all Hogan's idea. Like, this was Hogan's idea, was to flex his creative control and get Jarrett to take a dive. I think that it was all set up to make Russo look bad, because at the time, Russo and Bischoff were in a power struggle.
Yep.
And I think that that's what that was, and that's why Hogan said what he said and did what he did. But, man, it was just so strange. And, like, obviously we see one of the reasons why WCW failed, because of stupid stunts like this.
Too many cooks in the oven. There are too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, like, they just... what a stupid idea this was. I didn't like it.
Backfired so heavily on them too.
Right. And because Hogan's like, yeah, well, we can, this is why the company's in shits and blah, 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 BS like this. He still covered him for the pin.
Yeah. Still took the title.
Still took the title, which is what he wanted all along.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was just really strange. So, like, that it just led to confusion. Nobody knew what was going on or why they were doing what they were doing. It was just so strange, dude. Like, and then right after that match,
Vampiro comes out, and it's like, dude, what is happening? How is this?
Literally, as Hogan's walking out, Vampiro's walking in.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Like, it was so strange, dude. And then he cuts like a promo he gets to the ring, cuts the promo, which I think you had to get to the ring to win that match or whatever it was. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what they were saying because you had to get back into the ring to
Right.
yeah.
So that's how he gets the W, which fine, whatever. And then randomly, these drone, whatever they call those people, is it drones?
Druids?
Whatever they call druids.
with
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the druids come out with a casket, and apparently Sting is there. Like, it's Sting, and then he hits him with a bat. Vampiro's in a casket. That's how that ended.
But at least Sting was there.
Right. But it was just so strange to me. Like, that was just a weird way to end that, dude.
Yeah.
And then right after that, Russo comes back and cuts the promo that ends up in court. He trashes Hogan.
How dare you defame a fictitious character?
Dude, which is hilarious that he tried to sue about something that he said on a wrestling show about a character that he was playing. But Hogan's always taking himself too seriously.
Yup.
But so he cuts a promo, calls Hogan bald a bunch of times, which if you watch the Dark Side of the Ring, you realize that Hogan absolutely hates the fact that people call him bald or mention it at all. So Russo was just trying to like really lay him in there. I think he was just trying to get Hogan not to come back.
Yeah.
I think that's all that was. And then he announces that at the end of the night, we're going to get Booker T versus Jeff Jarrett for the real world title, not the Hogan
Memorial
Championship, which I thought was hilarious that he called it that. How did you feel about that promo?
I mean, it was bad, but it was like Vince Russo just in general is just bad when it comes to like speaking and doing the promo thing. And like, I think even his booking ideas, especially now, some of the stuff that you see that he says in the media is really bad. But like for what it was, like you could at least tell that the guy was on the side of like the fans and not necessarily like the corporate side. And he was being honest about what he wanted and what he thought. Cause like, and I remember watching the earlier match with Booker T, like watching him being like, Booker T was phenomenal. Like this dude was over. He was so good. Like the stuff that he could do, and the moveset that he had, he was a star. You could see it. He was a big dude. He was, jacked from head to toe, had some flashy moves that people weren't really doing. I mean, this dude was literally doing the rock bottom in the WCW. You know what I mean? Like
he was doing the rock bottom before the Rock did it.
Exactly. So like I 100% think that that was the right move, was putting it on Booker T. And because like if you have to, because it's happened in WWE, if you have someone that's hot and they're not just like some mid-card guy or some kind of green guy who just happens to have gotten over, like LA Knight is a good example where he's so over, but he still doesn't deserve to be the champion because he hasn't really proven enough that he can carry or an organization. But in those times back in WCW, I mean, Booker T had been cutting his teeth. I mean, Harlem Heat was also a crazy over tag team.
One of the best tag teams of all time.
Yeah, he very much deserved that opportunity, and it does suck to know that, like, Hogan, which we also know how Hogan feels about some type of people that, Booker T, falls into a category of, because there's been some things that Hogan said that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, Hogan's the rapist.
Yeah. So, makes you wonder about that kind of thing too. Like I 100% think that, Booker T was the right call and should have been WCW champion way longer before that.
My problem is you put him on this show. You put the title on him on this show. I ruined the ending, but whatever. You put the title on him during this show, and it kind of overshadows the fact that Booker T is champion.
Yes, 100%.
Because of everything that transpired before. It kind of mucks it up a little bit.
No one's talking about him as champion. Everyone's talking about what the hell is going on.
So like while you try to give him his moment, you didn't give him his moment.
Yeah, you kind of took away his moment.
Yeah, all you did was try to cover up the mistakes that Hogan made, and everybody's talking about how Hogan's a piece of shit and not how great it is that Booker T got the championship.
Exactly.
I feel like while the idea was in the right direction, it just failed. Like they just didn't do it right.
I agree.
So much better.
Booker T deserved a better moment than that.
But man, what balls by Russo to come out there and just let it all hang out like that. and the funny thing is, you hear the announcers, what does he want now? Oh, Oh, what could it be? Like this show is, and you could already tell in their voice they were upset about how the show went, and they even said they were like, this show's been a mess. Like this has been awful. And then by the end of that promo, they were like, we love Russo.
Yeah.
Like, it hits him on the mouth. And it's like, wow. That's it was just strange to me. Like everything was just strange. That whole it was.
It
And
was
then yeah. Go
it
ahead.
was literally a WCW in a pay-per-view. Like the definition of the WCW was that pay-per-view.
Yeah, the fall of WCW was showcased all in one night, pretty much.
Yeah.
It was so weird. And then you get Nash versus Goldberg for Hall's contract.
Which I think is also, I think, a way that they were doing with the outsiders in the NWO and in that whole thing that kind of ran WCW for the past few years leading up to that.
Yeah, which is what happens when you give talent too much power.
Yep. Where have we seen this before?
Nash and Hall had something in their contract that whenever somebody came on and got a bigger deal than they got, they would get a bigger deal. and they had I think they had majority creative control over what happened with them, which went bad eventually when they gave Nash the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm a big Kevin Nash guy, man. I love me some Kevin Nash. He did not do a great job booking. And to his defense, it wasn't a floundering company, so it is what it is, but you can't give guys this much power. And WCW handed out too many bad contracts and put themselves in a real bad position with aging superstars.
Well, unfortunately, too, the NWO is one of the greatest factions of all time, but everything gets stale. Like D-Generation X got old. Like I'm not in a rush to see a D-Generation X reunion. And then you had the Wolf Pack and NWO Black and White. It just gets saturated. It got old. Nobody wanted to see it anymore. Eventually you booked yourself into a corner with that kind of thing.
They put too many guys in the NWO and ruined it.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
There was so much they did right with the NWO at first, and then there was so much they did wrong. And I know where Russo wanted to do it. He wanted an NWO show, which was Thunder eventually, but he wanted their own show, and you saw that with the sold out pay-per-views and all that stuff. They just failed to capitalize on it. I think they just went about it the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But Goldberg ends up beating Nash in a lackluster match, which I expect out of any Goldberg match because Goldberg is trash. There is one guy in all of wrestling history that I can't stand. It's Bill Goldberg, and that might have something to do with the fact that he kicked Bret Hart in the head. And I'm a little still upset about that. Yeah, because I'm a big Bret guy, as everybody knows. But at the same time, talk about a guy that takes himself too seriously and just not good. He can't talk on the mic. He can't really wrestle. He did those squash matches, had an impossible undefeated record, and then he kind of sucks. He kind of sucks.
Yeah, I was never a big Goldberg fan either. I mean, I thought the entrance was cool and the allure of him when I was a kid and him in WCW was cool. But yeah, I mean, it's just a beast of a guy who eventually you book yourself into a corner with a guy like that,
right?
Where, he's going to get exposed at some point, which he did. He's been exposed multiple times now as a wrestler.
Right.
And it's just,
my big problem with Goldberg is when he lost to Nash, he blamed it on Nash having the book, but at the same time, how long can one dude stay undefeated? And the fans were already starting to get sick of him.
Yeah.
So you had to get yourself out of the corner, and it's not even like they pinned him clean. He got a taser to the neck and then took a power. You still looked impossible to beat. They had to cheat to beat you, but you can't hold an undefeated record forever. I mean,
especially when you do 3 moves.
Right. It's you spear somebody, you jackhammer them, and then you power slam them.
Yeah.
There's the Goldberg moveset. And he was never able to, while people make fun of John Cena and Roman Reigns for their limited movesets, they've added stuff over the years and got better in the ring and did their best to, get better. Mm-hmm. Goldberg never did that. He never evolved. Goldberg was never growing. It was weird.
It was the same thing repeatedly.
Yeah. They had Steiner come out and, help Goldberg win, I guess. Attack Nash, and then they, puts him in the Steiner recliner. They rip up the contract. Another way to get out of Scott Hall being on TV. I think this was during one of the times where he was really struggling, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But as sad as that is, this match was even sadder. It was
very
bad,
true.
Dude. It was bad. And then we get Jarrett versus Booker, the main event that was overshadowed, I feel, by what happened earlier in the night. Because everybody, you kind of knew where this match was going. because when Russo cut that promo, he talked so highly of these two guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was like, "This is what WCW should be. This is all good. That's WCW, which is great. You're putting them both over." And then he goes on a rant about Booker T, and then makes the match, and it's like, well, I can kind of see.
Yeah, obviously Jarrett's dropping the title to who he wanted to.
Right.
Which
Booker T deserved the title.
Yeah.
Like we both agree on that. Booker T deserved the title. It was just maybe you hold on to it to another night. You ride this out, bite the bullet. It didn't happen the way you wanted it to happen, but
do it on your weekly show to win ratings.
Right. But to just do it right after this mess of a show kind of just left a sour taste for everybody with Booker T, because it's not any fault of his, just how the show played out.
Yeah.
It was just a very odd show that was overshadowed by a lot of bogus stuff.
Yeah.
Too. All right. 1 to 10 figure skating. What are you giving this show?
I mean, initially, I think the show gets a 5 based on what the show, the what happened from start to finish. But with the extra spiciness, I would give it a 7, like a 7.2.
Oh, okay.
Because I do think that it's, I mean, this is kind of revisionist history. Looking back on it, it was a very important pay-per-view in wrestling history. And then the fact that, you didn't know what was work, what was kayfabe, what was really going on. There was a lot of controversy that did up the score a little bit, just because it was that pay-per-view,
That's fair. I like that. You changed my score when you started talking about the controversy and how that bumps up the score, because I was desperately low on this pay-per-view. I'm gonna give it a 5.3. The wrestling wasn't great.
No, the card was awful.
Right.
But and again, like if you asked me as it happened in 2000, I probably would have been with you as a 5.3. But it's hard to take, the history out of it and knowing what came out of it, how everyone feels about it now. That to me now gives it a higher score, because you listen to Vince Russo and you feel it now. Right.
It was just not a good.
No, it was an awful. Otherwise, it was pretty bad. One of the best matches was the first match on the card.
Yes, I think that might. Yeah, I think that probably was the best match on this card. And then like the cinematic match was cool.
Yeah.
But everything else was kind of like lackluster, and just like the announcers were checked out because of all the drama and BS that was happening, and it was just. I think a lot of people don't talk about it, but I feel like announcers have a bigger weight in the show than a lot of people will give them credit for. Because if the announcers are excited about a match and they deliver a great call, you're going to be more apt to want to watch it and think it was a great match, rather than just very boring, kind of confused announcers talking about a match.
Agreed.
Like JR and Jerry the King made 90s wrestling that much better.
They did.
You know what I mean? Pat McAfee and Michael Cole do that for today's sport. Like they do a great job. Like Pat McAfee and Michael Cole do such a great job.
He reminds me of a puma, fast like a puma. Breaks so Michael Cole. Funny. Have you seen that clip?
Yeah.
They were talking about Rick. It breaks Michael Cole, and he was like, I just wasn't expecting you to say that. Like after, obviously like not on air when they went to commercial. I just wasn't expecting you to say that. That's like a puma.
And then what else did he say? The Dominic Mysterio thing when he called him a dude wipe after you wipe.
Yeah.
And then Michael Cole's like, you got away with words. And Pat McAfee just goes, I'm an orator. Like, he was just, but like when they're having fun, it makes the show so much better.
Yeah.
Like Michael Cole is better now than he has been.
Yeah, probably 100%. Like I just said, him referencing Puma to Ricochet is obviously a call to Lucha Underground, and that's something that would have never happened with Vince McMahon still working. Like he would have probably been fired for that, because famously you could never reference what a star had done, which is awful. And I love that they're getting away from that. Different story for a different day, but they are letting people
they even brought up
keeping his name.
They even brought up Sting on his last match.
Yep.
Like, so they do cool stuff. Like, you can't act like nothing else is happening.
You can't act. You can't act like you're the only, and that's what's driven me nuts for years. You can't act like you are the only organization that exists, because it's just not true. Whether you want it to be or not, it's not true. Right.
It was just, I like the commentary teams. That was another thing I feel like, not to harp on it, but AEW did like a really confusing thing when they had the 3-man booth to start. I haven't paid much attention when I do watch, because I skip through a lot of their shows. But the commentary team really makes a wrestling program what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's very important that you have a good commentary team and they have good chemistry, and that they kind of deliver the product that you want it to be. All in all,
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
like they are what it is. Like SmackDown has, was it Corey Graves?
Yep. Corey Graves and is it Wade Barrett that's doing SmackDown now?
Oh yeah, it might be.
I think.
I like Wade Barrett too, but even
Yeah.
that commentary team, it's like, all right. I mean, it's all right. It's good. It's not great.
Yeah.
But then you have the A team with Pat McAfee and Michael Cole on Mondays, so it's tough to top those guys. Like, but going back, you have Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain. They were unbelievable together.
Mhm.
I mean, all these legendary teams on. I mean, even what was it? Paul Heyman and JR was great
Yeah.
when they were doing that. Like, I feel like you just gotta. Yeah, I feel like the commentary team really did a disservice to the WCW show on this one.
Yeah, they were all checked out. They just wanted to.
But I can't blame them for the show
Yeah.
either, because it was like, what the frig is going on, dude?
Yeah.
Like, it was so much backstage politics, and that's what killed WCW inevitably.
Mhm.
And so, like, this show really, really put that right at the forefront.
Yeah.
Of
Brought it to light.
everything. Yeah. And then eventually the more stories come out. You get the Dark Side of the Rings. You get all these documentaries. You get the, rise and fall of WCW where they talk about this stuff. And it's unfortunate because they had a lot of talent and they were ahead of their time on a lot of different things. It's just they couldn't put it together at the end and just failed miserably. It was not a great pay-per-view. I was a little tough on it with the 5-3, but I feel like we're going to go over a bunch of shows, and I want to keep like the 8s and the 9s like close to the top end shows.
Yeah,
You know
I
what mean?
agree.
Like,
Yeah.
and we'll see. Maybe we'll do another randomizer this week or whatever it is. I'll see, because it doesn't feel like there's going to be too much news outside of the draft.
Yeah, we'll see. You hope you say, but it's been weird the last week.
Right. Do you have anything else you want to add? I think we covered all the news and everything else too.
Yeah, I think we got it pretty well lathered, buttered up, and ready for the oven.
This was fun.
Yeah, it was.
This was a lot of fun to talk about, man. I really enjoyed the Bash of the Beach talk too. I love talking old school wrestling. Like last week on Friday when we went off the air, you made a joke about, because I went on a little rant, and you said this should be the show, but it's like, people see and like, yeah, we complain about certain things and we give props to certain things, but I think all in all, what people have to realize is like, we love professional wrestling. Like, both of us are big pro wrestling fans. That's why we do a pro wrestling podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And we thoroughly enjoy it. It's just some stuff we just don't really care for, and we just talk about it. It's not like we're trashing pro wrestling as a whole. This is something we both love more than we love most of the other sports or anything like that. Like, pro wrestling's beautiful.
Mhm.
Like, it's got a little bit of something for everybody, I feel like.
Exactly.
Like,
always a little bit of something for everyone.
Right. And it's at the time now where it's probably the best it has been in years.
Yes.
Like,
it really is.
And I feel like me trashing AEW, it's more or less because I'm disappointed that they aren't what I thought they were going to be. And I was hoping
that's
that
the same reason why I talk so negatively about it, because I going into it, I was skeptical. And as the years have progressed, it has just been the word's escaping me, but everything they said they weren't going to be, they have eventually become.
Yeah.
So, hate me if you want for not being a big AEW guy, but when you can't create talent, you can't sustain talent, and you tell your fans you're going to do one thing and then half the show is the other thing. I just like, so what separates you from anybody else? Like, I would rather invest more time in TNA.
Right. And the big thing is AEW came out at the beginning and said they were going to. Did I? Can you hear me?
Can't hear you. And that was the end. I will say, while we wait,
can you hear me now?
Back, because there's still no sound, still can't hear you. As you've seen over my right shoulder, Drake May, number 3 overall. As Pat's fan, very excited.
Can you hear me now?
Hear you. Nope. You might have did you hit your mute button on there? Is there a mute button on the back? Now you're muted.
How's this?
Nope, got nothing.
Man.
Yep, unplug it, plug it back in. Yeah, you should blow on it like a cartridge. See if that works.
Can you hear me now?
You might have, what might have happened is actually since you unplugged it, it might have pulled the source from.
How about now?
StreamYard, so you might actually have to drop and come back in. I would try that, see if it works. If not, I will just continue to talk about the Patriots draft while we wait to wrap up. So how crazy is it that the first draft that the New England Patriots have after years of Bill Belichick and a lot of defensive draft picks, a lot of reaches, they needed a quarterback, a wide receiver, offensive tackle, help on the offensive line, and their 3 picks: wide receiver, quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle. Who for some reason they took a right tackle, they're going to convert to left tackle. Good for them. It was a breath of fresh air. The only other, which I still think, Nathan,
Can you hear me?
no, nope,
Oh my God.
something's dead. You know what? Give me a thumbs up if you just want me to wrap it up. I'll let's for the GOAT, Bams, I'm Joey B. Obviously Bams is decided that he's taken a vow of silence until AEW stops lying to their hardcore fans. So for Bams, I'm Joey B.
How's this?
And let's drop it before I say something stupid and have to, do a punishment wheel next week. Take it easy.